Okay, Shalom. You're watching Rabbi Simon Altef Akohin and Rabbi Jeremiah Beaton on another program on Hebrew Bible secrets. But today we are not going to discuss so many secrets of the Bible, but we are going to discuss a personal testimony of. We're going to start with Rabbi Jeremiah. What brings him here? Because I know that he has been through a rough road.
Yes. Well, for me. God brought me back in 2010 when things were really down in my life. I just broke up with my lady. I've been with her for 25 years, and I was really down and I needed help, basically. So I called out to God, and I asked, what do you want from me? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I doing wrong?
Right.
So, with that said, about 2 months later, God put His Spirit upon me.
Right.
And this lasted for about 4.5 hours. And in that time, I knew that God had a purpose for me.
What did you do at the time when you had the Spirit of God upon you?
There was nothing I could do. All I could do was just endure this feeling.
Right.
And it was such a beautiful feeling. It was overwhelming. The shalom, the peace, everything was on me, but I couldn't move. I was crying, but there were tears of joy.
Right.
And I just knew that this was coming from above, and I just thank God, for that time with Him, what He was doing to me at that time. I realized later that what He had done was He'd taken away my heart of stone,
right,
and He'd given me a heart of flesh,
right,
to return back to His Torah,
right,
to the truth.
So why did you instantly think that you have to go back to the Torah, and why not Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or something else?
For me, it was more of the Heavenly Father guiding me. So I was basically just leaving it unto His hands,
right,
putting myself into His hands. And when I heard where I needed to be, which is when I heard the Torah being spoken about on YouTube, that's when I knew,
right,
somewhere within the Torah, that's where I need to fix myself.
So you knew that the truth was between, Torah, I guess, Christianity, Islam, within those boundaries somewhere, because they all believe in one God.
Yes.
And so you believe that monotheism, within that, they lied the answer. So,
Definitely.
so I guess what you're saying is that you did some research at that point to determine where which gate you enter.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think the first thing for me was when I heard that Yahushua, Jesus, was a man of color.
Right.
So that's when I knew, okay, so this is where I need to be. I need to return back to the Bible. So I read the whole Bible.
Well, a lot of people don't believe that Rabbi Yeshua is a man of color, because they're shown the pictures of white Jesus, and everywhere you look is this person of Caucasian skin.
Of course.
So so what my point is this, that that kind of seems a little bit I don't say contradictory, but
yeah,
it seems a little bit harsh. Why would you paint him black?
Well, scriptures tell us that he was a man of bronze color, with locks,
right,
with hair like wool,
right,
and feet like burnt brass.
right.
So if scripture is telling us that, and that's in the Tanakh, and it's in the New Testament. So therefore,
you mean the New Testament scriptures?
yes,
right.
New Testament scriptures.
So New Testament for Christians. So they use. I know you're referring to the Book of Revelation,
exactly,
where his figment is described.
Yes.
But in terms of Tanakh, I think you're referring to the people of the book.
Exactly.
Generally.
Exactly.
So we know that the people of the book started off from being people with brown, black skins.
Exactly.
So darker, lighter shades. And of course, then other races, come into it, and people convert, and people, marry other people. There's a mixture going on.
Yes.
But so I'm kind of like intrigued that you said that you decided that Torah was the way for you. So something must have led you into that conclusion.
Yes, I mean, now as I'm doing my research, then I come across you on YouTube.
Right. Right.
And when I heard you speak about Torah, about the prophets, about future events, I knew at that point that that's where God wanted me to be.
Right.
So that's why I knew that you were the one to be my teacher.
Right.
Because you were not speaking about these truths. Nobody else was speaking about these truths but you, basically.
So basically, I mean, you had a desire to find God.
Of course.
And you know, God brought His Spirit upon you.
Yes.
And then, you know, molded you because, of course, you know, we're all kind of rebellious. You know, we don't want to do our own thing.
Exactly.
And so God molded you, and at that point, you decided that you needed to seriously, you know, enter the truth, enter the true doors, because you realize that, you know, there are a lot of religions out there, you know, as in England, there are many religions here. Mm-hmm. As in other countries, and so that kind of took you there. What about your family? How did they take that? Because that's a radically different step.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, my family, obviously, when I obviously told them, they thought I was, you know, joining a cult.
Right.
Because there's a lot of groups out there at the moment, you know, who say they are Jews,
right,
but they're not teaching the right way, or they're not, you know, they don't really understand the Torah and
right,
teaching it like the way you are. So for me, yeah, my family, obviously, you know, they were a bit perturbed and they didn't understand at first.
right,
But now they understand that it's a way that God wants me to live.
Right.
So I'm not saying, you know, they have to live that way, but it's for me,
right,
this is the way I have to live.
Right.
This is what God has shown me.
Baruch Hashem.
Yes.
So you're not basically putting your faith, you're not forcing them that they have to do that too, you know.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, obviously it would be nice for them to come back, because then I know, obviously, you know, they will have protection through the Torah and through keeping the commandments.
Would you say then, based on that, to stop you short there,
right,
is that Christianity will fold into Judaism one day?
I would say so, most definitely.
If the Torah is the truth, and if, you know, if Israel is going to be restored as a nation, I mean, to me, if I, you know, wanted to live in England as a resident, then I have to acquire the legal resident permit, exactly, or, you know, get the British nationality. I have to accept the Queen, etc., etc. Exactly. With all of those things, I can't say, oh, I'm going to come to England and set up my, you know, home over here, but you have to listen to me.
Yeah.
You know. So what I'm saying is that the Bible, the picture that the Bible paints is that God of Israel is going to restore Israel one day.
Yes.
But that means every religion that doesn't follow the God of Israel or doesn't accept all the tenets of the Torah will have to fall into that.
Will have to.
So that's basically what you're saying, is that that's where it's going to go.
That's what God is showing me.
Not the 38,000 denominations.
No, I'm afraid not. It's not going to work.
But how does your family, you know, what happens when you have, you know, these traditions that Christians keep, like Christmas, Easter? What happens those times, you know, with your family? Do they not come into fist fight? Why aren't you coming to the Christmas dinner?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the first year was a bit hard. You know, they didn't understand. You know, and you know they were upset. But you know, they understand now that for me, the Sabbath, you know, has to be, you know, set apart. And their traditions, obviously, they're not in the Torah. God didn't give us those traditions, so therefore I don't keep them. So they understand that now. So
you went from a kind of a secular mindset, you know, I wouldn't say Christian, but a secular kind of mindset, where, you know, liberal, secularist, you know, maybe there's God, maybe there's not God, and from there you went to a strict Sabbatarian, Sabbath keeper, and kosher laws and everything else that you've taken upon yourself.
That's correct.
Do you find that as a burden?
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, you know, I used to love my bacon sarnies, you know, many years ago, and you know. But when I read, you know, in the Torah, that obviously, you know, the God of Israel doesn't want us to eat pork because it's unclean for whatever reason. So I knew instantly I had to stop it.
Right.
And the same with crab, and the same with lobsters and prawns. I used to love those things, but now you know, that was it. It was gone for me.
So it's a major shift in your life to accept the Torah and enter the gate of the Torah. You know, the gates of the forefathers, Abraham, yes, Isaac, and Jacob, namely.
Yes, indeed.
So have you come across any other hurdles in your walk?
I mean, there are some hurdles, but you know, I don't look at them as hurdles. You know, for instance, you know, obviously, you know, we have our set apart days and our feasts.
Yes.
So you know, I keep those feasts and you know, those days, which are you know, we're told to do them in the Torah. So those are the days I keep, and the feasts I keep. So you know, some days it might you know, clash with work or whatever, but other than that,
right.
No other issues.
Right. Okay. Good.
So What about you then, Hakan? How did you come back to the truth?
Well, you know that I guess I wasn't a liberalist or a secularist. You know, I was a Muslim, and not a radical jihadi either. But you know, I was a Muslim, and I was searching for truth for many years. And every day I would come back from work. I would pray to God, and I'd say, you know, God, please, you know, speak to me. And although in Islamic theology, you know, God doesn't speak to you. Allah doesn't talk to you directly. You know, there's no instance in the Quran, the Muslim holy book, where Allah spoke to you directly.
Yeah.
You know, it technically says it spoke through the angel Gabriel. So I was like, no, God's going to speak to me. I don't know, for whatever reason. I said, no, God has to speak to me. God can speak. God is able to communicate to His creation. He's going to speak to me. So I was searching for that for many years, about 10 years. And then one day, you know, I was working in London in an investment bank, and I heard a voice, you know, that said that come follow me. But before I heard that voice, you know, as I was seeking God, I was you know, told to go back to Moses.
Right.
So there were two particular events that focused, you know, my life. First event was, and I was seeking some answers. The answer that was given me was go back to Moses.
So you're saying, sorry for cutting you. You're saying basically when it says go back to Moses, that meant going back to the Torah, the first 5 books.
Yes, and then it didn't kind of stop there, and then I heard saying, "Come and follow me," or "Follow me," and that is what turned my life around. Then I guess, you know, I never touched the Bible. I didn't know what Bible was. You know, I always read the Quran at the time. So I then, you know, I actually came across some Christians at the time who then helped give me a Bible. And then I looked at the Bible, and then I went through the, you know, process, and then I realized that Christians actually follow parts of the Bible, not all of the Bible.
Right.
So because, you know, they might read the book of Isaiah, but they may not follow all the commandments therein, or they may read the book of Ezekiel, but they don't, you know, follow all the commandments, or they maybe read, you know, majority of them don't even read the Torah.
Yeah.
They might just read it on off basis. So when I went through that process, I realized as I was walking that it didn't, you know, Christians did not follow everything in the Bible. I questioned Christians, why? So that was my point of conversion. And I wanted to follow the Torah. I wanted to be strict about it. You know, I wanted to do everything that God desired. So I was more interested in not what man says. What does God say according to God?
Yes.
And God says, you know, keep my laws, you know, keep my Sabbaths. You know, it tells us that if you will obey my voice in Deuteronomy 28, if you will obey my voice and keep my commandments, guard my commandments, then, you know, I'll raise you up. So I was like, I'm going to do all of that. I have to do it. So when I converted, it was a major issue for me because my family, majority were Muslims, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, Muslims don't accept you decide to change.
So how did they take that? I mean, you know, when
very, very painstakingly, because, you know, my wife could no longer be my wife because Islamic law doesn't allow it. My half of my family cut off because they said that, you know, he's become a infidel. And so even though, you know, people of the book is not infidel, even if you call yourself a Christian, you're not infidel. But nevertheless, you know, because of this kind of radical, you know, thinking, some family members were saying that, you know, he's gone astray and he's left the faith, and so I could no longer live with my wife. I could no longer be the husband. My marriage was finished, dissolved.
Right.
So then, you know, then it was a hard road to take.
Yes.
I had to leave home. You know, I had to leave home and I had to go out to walk with God, to do the things that God desired me to do. I couldn't do it in that house, and so, you know, we had a lot of conflict, and no matter what I would try, how much I would reason, it will fail to, you know, it will fall on deaf ears. So it wasn't of no use. So then I left, and then I continued with God, and of course I went to Messianic churches to seek truth there. In fact, I went to Golders Green for a number of years to seek truth there, but I found that the truth wasn't there. It wasn't in a Messianic church. The truth was in Torah.
Okay.
So I had to then, you know, ask myself some hard questions. Is that God has asked me to follow Him, not a denomination. So I decided that no, I had to leave, you know, my family in order to walk with God. I had to separate myself for a time and, you know, seek God, seek His ways.
Right.
So I flipped, you know, totally from a Muslim stance to that, and then How did I learn that, what I am today, a Jew, not a Gentile?
Yes.
Is that I went, God showed me. God showed me that you belong to the people of Israel. And so I went back to my father. I then took a trip to Pakistan and I said to my father, who are we? Because I understand that we are not who we believe we are,
Right.
what's been told me from the family.
Uh-huh.
So my father then told me, then, we got into some discussions with some other family members. My father then said, you have gone to the faith of your forefathers.
Right.
He said, you have gone to the faith of your forefathers. And then he explained to me that how we came from the Persian Empire to India. And from India, then we had the 1947 split into Pakistan and India. And so he explained that this is what you have done. And then he told the other family members, don't argue with him. He has gone back to the faith of his forefathers. Means that I was a Jew,
Right.
Persian Jew.
Okay.
So then, as God revealed to me that we belong to the Kohanim, the Levite family. And so we had very important positions in the Persian Empire. I realized all of that. We, had a genealogy.
Mhm.
And I was like, my goodness, it's totally what is totally the other way. And, it's like that movie. If you remember that movie, is it Infidel? Where this man who's a Muslim,
Yeah.
and he realizes
He's a Jew. Yeah. He's a Jew.
So it was similar scenario to that I was a Jew, but I had to, either I had to hide as a Muslim,
Yeah.
pretend to be a Muslim,
Mhm.
or I had to come out and say, no, I really have to follow Torah.
So how did your family take that? How did you find the change from going from obviously Islam to
For me, it was very easy
to
because
Judaism?
it was Islam is ritual based. So for me, it was no problem going from that to this was much easier. Monotheism, from that to this, and adopting the festivals, doing the Sabbath was much easier
Mhm.
because I didn't have no problems with any of that.
Right.
It was like just like flipped. You flip a switch, and 1 minute I'm Muslim, next minute I'm something that I didn't even know I was at
Yeah.
the time. So
Yeah.
so I realized that no, I can't be a Christian. Although most people thought I was Christian. And I can't be, something else in between.
Mhm.
I can't hide myself with a Muslim cap and say I'm a Muslim because I'll be lying to people as well and myself.
Yeah.
So I had to come out and say, no, I'm going to follow the faith of Abraham.
Mhm.
And so I have to be who I am. So therefore I took that role and I continued. And I guess, as my faith progressed, as I went out, I left a £60,000 job in London
Right.
because I wanted to take the message of God to the rest of the world. I mean, I don't know anybody who just decides one day to just leave his job and say, go
Nobody
to
does
the
that.
world.
Nobody does that.
So,
Yeah.
so I decided that back in 2015, that was it, God said go, and I said, I'm leaving. So I left. So therefore, I think that we all have to make sacrifices
Mhm.
for God,
Mhm.
the God of Israel. And, He calls us to do that. And if we don't, then that basically tests us, doesn't it?
Yes.
Money always tests us.
Exactly.
So that was my life, unfortunately, or fortunately for that matter. And I came across, I studied several Bibles and several books, but eventually, ultimately, everything led to the Torah.
Indeed, as it has for me as well.
So to me, it was then how you deal with the family, just as your family, eventually came to the realization that this man is serious.
Mhm.
He is not doing this because today he's going to be one thing, tomorrow another.
No.
So my family also reconciled. My dad actually had more respect for me because I said to my father, why are you leaving this faith? Why aren't you staying within this faith that I am in, your aunties and uncles and everybody else is in?
Yeah.
I said to my father that you taught me one day when I was small, you said to me that you die for the truth. You uphold the truth.
Mhm.
So I said, your lesson I'm applying today. So I said, I am in the truth and I will die for that truth.
Mhm.
So my father then went quiet because, it was his words
Yeah.
that I gave him. And so after that, my father came to respect me for being who I am rather than pretending to be something I'm not.
Yes.
Because I know Muslims today in Muslim countries who are not Muslim. In other words, they have either become Christian or maybe they have become Jewish,
Mhm.
but they hide that from the public
Yes.
because they know that if they let the people know, they will be killed. In fact, there was a Muslim in Saudi Arabia that I helped to bring to the truth, and even to this day, he hasn't told his family. Why? Because the stakes are too high for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that in his family they will strike his head off. They will cut him off from his inheritance. They will decapitate him in Saudi Arabia, and they'll be and that he'll be forgotten in history as a renegade or whatever label they want to give him.
Yeah.
So there are people like that who don't have the opportunity to express themselves. But
of course,
God put me in a country, in England, where I could express myself, and Baruch Hashem that I could.
yes.
And I said, I'm going to do that.
Baruch Hashem.
So this is why, I decided that I have to speak from the mountaintops. I'm not going to hide my testimony. I'm not going to hide under the bed and pretend to be a Muslim. I'm going to have to tell the people who I am. And that's why I moved away from everything, and I followed, the Bible, the Tanakh, with a full heart. Everything, invested in it
Yes.
for myself.
Yes.
Or my personal family, and so that's what brings me to even to this platform today, thanks to Faith TV. I have a lot of respect for Christians. I have a lot of Christian friends. I spoke in many churches before. Christians have a lot of Christians that I know are very good friends of mine, and they come to me for advice and other things going on in prophecy and what's going on, etc.
Yeah.
So kind of it's not an issue for me in as a Jewish person to give advice or to love those people without being judgmental on people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly.
So you may have come across similar situations.
Yeah, well, it's the same with us here now. In England now that we turned back to the Torah. Our doors are open to everybody.
Right.
We anybody who wants to learn and study can come in. Everybody.
Right. So
Jews,
so you're
Muslims.
right. So you're opening your door to anybody, and we do. I do want to emphasize that we are open, for God's business, and we will teach you the tenets of the law of God if you desire, the Sabbath and everything else around it. And we are not hostile to anybody. We're not judgmental to Christians or judgmental to Muslims or other people, why they don't believe the way we do. We're not like that. So we are open to giving you the truth. The rest is up to you what you do with it. If somebody took the truth and decided to remain a Muslim for the rest of his life, that's his, that's between him and God.
Exactly.
But for us, as people of the book, people, who are going to be light to the nations, we have to take out the truth. So I am fulfilling the mission that God has given me. The God of Israel, has given us a mission, Baruch Hashem, to all of us Jews. Some of us are a little squeamish about it. We like to hide and pretend that we're not Jewish, but we have to do it. So this is where we are, and I believe we're coming close to the end of the program.
Yes.
And so anything else that you wish to say?
Well, I just want to say, after listening to your lectures and following you and then joining you on Power Talk, it was a couple of years after that God spoke to me also.
Right.
And said to me, Jeremy, teach them this truth.
Right.
So with that in mind, I now have to put myself, and out there as a teacher and bring as many people back who are interested back to Torah,
Right.
back to God's word. I know this to be true.
Right.
I know this to
I'm into that.
true.
And so how do you feel about speaking in churches and places like that, regards your beliefs, your Torah?
I love to speak in churches. Anybody who's open to hear the truth about Torah.
Right.
To
So
hear God's
maybe even maybe you could even help Christians get some understanding. So I think we're coming to the end of the program. So
Okay.
I like to give thanks to the viewers for listening to myself, Rabbi Jeremiah. So I like to say shalom to you.
Shalom, shalom.